A plumber knocked on my neighbor's door last Tuesday, spent 4 minutes under the kitchen sink, collected $150, and drove away. My neighbor stood there watching his truck pull out of the driveway, holding a receipt that cost more than his weekly grocery bill for 4 minutes of work. And here's the part that got to me. What that plumber used under the sink cost him less than $1. I know because I asked him. He wouldn't answer. But I already knew. What's sitting in your kitchen drain right now isn't a mystery. It's a combination of grease, soap residue, hair proteins, and mineral buildup from hard water. That's it. That's the entire enemy. And the reason it turns into a slow drain or completely blocked. One is because these four things don't just accumulate. They bind together. The grease coats the pipe walls. The minerals crystallize on top of the grease. The soap scum bridges the gap. The hair weaves through all of it like rebar in concrete. By the time you've got a real problem, you've got a layered structure that commercial drain cleaner barely touches. Which, if you think about it, is exactly the design intent. Here's what made me dig into this. It wasn't the plumber's bill that got me, it was what he used. I'd seen enough service calls to notice the pattern. Plumbers don't show up with specialized equipment for a standard residential clog. They show up with a hand auger, sometimes a small electric snake, for stubborn blockages, and a bottle of something they mix on site that smells like it came from a high school chemistry classroom. Not a commercial product. Not something from the plumbing supply house. Something mixed in a repurposed water bottle applied quickly, rinsed with hot water, and charged out at $150 in labor plus materials. The materials cost them, at retail, about 90 cents. The commercial drain cleaning industry, Drano, Liquid Plumber, the store brand equivalents, is worth roughly $4 billion annually in North America alone. $4 billion to solve a problem that household chemistry has handled for over 100 years. Before those products existed, before the marketing campaigns and the bright orange bottles and the warning labels, American households maintained their own drains with two ingredients that cost pennies and worked permanently when used on a regular schedule. That knowledge didn't disappear because something better came along. It disappeared because something more profitable did. Before Drano hit shelves in 1923 and turned drain maintenance into a product category, American households relied on a two-ingredient method that every plumber of that era learned as an apprentice. It wasn't secret knowledge. It was practical knowledge. The kind passed down in households the same way you learn to sharpen a knife or season a cast iron pan. Plumbers of that generation understood pipe chemistry the way mechanics used to understand carburetors. They fixed things because they understood what caused them. The shift toward commercial products didn't happen because the old methods stopped working. It happened because consumer culture changed. Products got marketed, services got professionalized, and the knowledge that used to live in kitchens quietly moved into service vans. Go back further, and the chemistry gets even more interesting. Roman engineers, the same ones who built aqueducts that are still structurally sound 2,000 years later, used a vinegar-based compound to keep their lead pipe joints clear during construction. The acidic properties of dilute acetic acid were well understood in the ancient world, not just for preservation, but for dissolving mineral deposits and biological matter. Chinese households during the Tang Dynasty used a heated alkaline solution derived from wood ash to clear cooking waste from drainage channels, functionally identical to what we'd now call a lye solution. These weren't accidents of folk wisdom. They were the product of observation over centuries. The chemistry works because it works, not because any particular era discovered it. The convergence point, the thing that makes this so clear, is that three separate civilizations arrived at the same fundamental principle independently. Heat plus alkalinity breaks down grease and proteins. Acidity dissolves mineral scale. You address both in sequence, and you've handled 90% of all residential drain clogs without a single commercial product, without a service call, and without paying $150 to someone who spent 4 minutes under your sink. The reason this works comes down to what a clog actually is, and most people have completely the wrong mental model. They picture a drain clog like a cork in a bottle, a solid obstruction plugged straight across, and that's the mental model that commercial drain cleaners are designed for. Hit it with a strong enough chemical and dissolve the cork. The problem is that real clogs aren't corks. They're more like the inside of an old kettle. Layered, gradual, and built from completely different compounds at different layers. The outermost layer of a typical kitchen drain clog is calcium and magnesium carbonate, mineral scale from hard water. These are alkaline compounds. They respond to acid, not to the sodium hydroxide base that most commercial drain cleaners lead with. So when you pour Drano down the drain, the active ingredient hits the mineral layer first and largely neutralizes itself before reaching the organic material underneath. You get a reaction, bubbling heat, the satisfying chemical theater, but you don't always get a clear to drain. You get a slightly less clogged drain that rebuilt itself in 3 months. Underneath the mineral layer is the grease and soap matrix. This is where alkalinity actually shines. Hot water combined with a strong base, sodium bicarbonate or sodium carbonate, saponifies the grease. That's the technical term, and what it means in practical terms is that the base turns the grease into a crude soap. It emulsifies. It becomes water-soluble. It washes away. This is why your grandmother's method of pouring boiling water with baking soda down a slow drain worked. It was targeting exactly the right layer with the right chemistry, not randomly, deliberately. The third component is the biological layer. Hair proteins, food particles, the bacterial biofilm that forms in any consistently moist environment. This responds to heat and to mild acidity, which is exactly what the second stage treatment addresses. Modern drain cleaners skip the layer-by-layer logic entirely. They use maximum strength sodium hydroxide, lye, and rely on brute chemical force to dissolve everything indiscriminately. It works sometimes. It also degrades older pipe fittings, particularly brass and aluminum joints, over repeated use. The manufacturers know this. The product that clears your drain also, over time, contributes to the conditions that eventually require a plumber. The cycle is self-reinforcing by design. So what are the two ingredients that do what a $150 service call does? The first one you already have. The second one costs less than $1, and you can pick it up at any grocery or hardware store. The first ingredient is baking soda. Not baking powder, baking soda, sodium bicarbonate. The box costs about $1, and you'll use half a cup per treatment. This is your alkaline stage. It attacks the grease and soap matrix. It releases carbon dioxide as it reacts, which creates mild mechanical pressure in the pipe. Not enough to clear a full blockage on its own, but enough to loosen the adhesion of built-up material along the pipe wall. The second ingredient is white distilled vinegar. Plain, cheap, 5% acetic acid concentration. The large bottles run about $2 for 64 ounces, and you'll use 1 cup per treatment. This is your acid stage. It attacks the mineral scale. It also neutralizes the baking soda reaction, and together they produce a fizzing action that clears loosened material mechanically. Here's exactly how to do it. And the sequence matters. Get this wrong and you just neutralize the chemistry before it does any work. Boil a full kettle of water. While it's heating, pour half a cup of dry baking soda directly down the drain. Don't add water yet. You want the powder to settle against the clogged material as a concentrated mass, not as a diluted solution. Let it sit for 3 minutes. Then pour 1 cup of white vinegar directly on top of the baking soda. You'll hear the reaction immediately, and that fizzing sound is the saponification process starting and the carbonate releasing. Put a drain cover or a small plate over the drain opening. This is important. You want to direct the pressure of the reaction downward into the pipe, not upward out of the drain. Let it sit for 20 minutes, not 10, 20. The reaction continues past the initial fizzing, and the sustained chemical contact time is what separates a full clean from a partial one. After 20 minutes, pour the entire boiling kettle of water down the drain in a steady, continuous pour. The heat accelerates the final emulsification and flushes the loosened material through. You'll often hear the drain clear audibly, a change in the sound of the water as the restriction releases. For a slow drain, 1 treatment is usually sufficient. For a partial blockage, water draining but slowly, do the treatment, wait an hour, and repeat once. For a full blockage where water is standing, do the treatment, wait 30 minutes, then use a cup plunger with water in the basin before flushing. The combination of the chemistry and the mechanical pressure from the plunger clears the vast majority of residential clogs without any further intervention. Cost breakdown: half a cup of baking soda from a $1 box, about 20 cents worth. 1 cup of vinegar from a $2 bottle, about 25 cents worth. Hot water, total cost per treatment, under 50 cents. The plumber charged $150. The materials cost him less than $1. The markup is not covering expertise. It's covering the fact that you didn't know what he knew. Here's where most people stop, and it's exactly where the plumbers want you to stop. They treat the symptom once, it comes back in 6 months, and the cycle continues. The method that actually eliminates the service call entirely isn't the one-time treatment. It's the maintenance protocol. Once a month, pick the first of the month so you remember, run the baking soda and vinegar treatment as a preventive flush. You're not waiting for a clog. You're preventing one from forming. At 50 cents a treatment, you're spending $6 a year on drain maintenance. The average household with 0 preventive maintenance calls a plumber for drain issues once every 18 months to 2 years, at $100 to $200 a visit. The math is embarrassing. Add 1 additional step to the monthly routine. After the vinegar flush, pour a kettle of water with 2 tablespoons of table salt dissolved in it. Salt acts as a mild abrasive as it flows through and also draws moisture out of the biofilm layer, the bacterial coating, that develops in drains and contributes to odors and slow buildup. This 3-part monthly routine, baking soda, vinegar, salt water flush, is the complete maintenance protocol. It takes 8 minutes once a month. It eliminates drain service calls almost entirely. For households with garbage disposals, add 1 step, Freeze white vinegar in an ice cube tray and run 2 or 3 of the frozen vinegar cubes through the disposal before the monthly treatment. The mechanical action of the ice cleans the disposal blades, while the vinegar cleans the disposal interior. Then run the baking soda and vinegar treatment into the drain as normal. The disposal drain is always the first place buildup forms. Address it first. Your parents' generation paid plumbers for knowledge, not labor. The labor of clearing a drain is genuinely minimal. That's not a criticism of the trade, it's a description of the task. What you were actually paying for was the gap between what they knew and what you knew. That gap was manufactured, not by individual plumbers, most of whom learned their trade honestly and do real, difficult work on genuinely complex jobs, but by the shift in how household maintenance knowledge gets transmitted, away from practical education and toward professional dependency. Your grandparents maintained their own drains. Their parents did too. This knowledge was ordinary. It was kitchen knowledge. The kind of thing you'd mention the same way you'd mention how to get a stain out of a shirt. The 2-ingredient method isn't a hack or a workaround. It's chemistry that has worked for over 100 years, applied in the correct sequence, at the right temperature, with the right contact time. It costs 50 cents. It takes 8 minutes. And it works better than the $4 billion industry that replaced it, because it addresses the actual structure of the problem instead of reaching for brute force. The information was never hidden. It just got crowded out. Try it this week on whichever drain runs slowest in your house. You'll have your answer in 20 minutes. And the next time a service van pulls up to your neighbor's house for a drain call, you'll know exactly what's in that repurposed water bottle and what it cost. If this kind of overlooked household chemistry interests you, there's a lot more of it. Subscribe and you'll catch the next one. I've got a backlog of methods that should be common knowledge and somehow aren't anymore. And if someone you know is still paying for service calls on problems that cost 50 cents to solve, share this with them. Knowledge like this spreads the way it always has. Person to person, the way it was supposed to.